Faculty of Management Studies, Sabaragamuwa, University of Sri Lanka. Currently, he also serves as the President of the Sri Lanka Institute of Marketing. He holds a Doctor of Philosophy in Finance from the University of Colombo, a MSc in Applied Finance, and a postgraduate diploma from the University of Sri Jayawardhanapura, BA Honours in Business from the Glenveagh University, UK. Further, he is a member of the Chartered Institute of Marketing, a fellow member of the Chartered Management Institute, and a certified management accountant. After serving 17 years in the industry, he joined academia and he is a pioneer in applying triangulation research approaches in the management discipline. He is currently serving as the co-editors-in-chief of the South Asian Journal of Marketing, published by Emerald Publishing, senior associate editor of the FIIB Business Review, published by the Sage Publishing, and an academic editor of PLOS1, a Q1 journal indexing Web of Science. He has published more than 50 articles indexed by Scopus during the last 5 years. His research work has Google citations of more than 1,200 with H and I10 indexes of 17 and 28 respectively. He has been awarded for research excellence several times, including the University of Michigan International Mixed Methods Scholarship Award, the most cited research of Sabaragamuwa, University of Sri Lanka for the year 2024, Best Researcher of the Faculty of Management Studies of the Sabaragamuwa University of Sri Lanka for 2022, Grand Winner of the IIARI Luminary Award 2021 in Asia for Research Excellence, Grand Winner of the Dean's Award for Research Excellence at the Faculty of Management Studies, the Sabaragamuwa University of Sri Lanka for 2021, and several Best Paper Awards at the conferences. He has published extensively in top-tier research journals, including Managerial Finance, Qualitative Research in Financial Markets, Journal of Public Affairs, International Journal of Qualitative Methods, etc. He is the main coordinator to the introductory team of the data triangulation approach to the finance discipline. Recently, he has been accredited as a fellow chartered manager by the Chartered Institute of Management, UK. Considering his valuable contribution to research and academia, Emerald Publishing UK has appointed him as the brand ambassador for its South Asian region. We are truly honored to have him with us today. So here onwards, the platform is yours, sir.
Thank you very much, Rasmi, for your introduction. So let me share my PPT first. Okay, so very good evening, everyone. So today we are going to discuss one of the most important topics in the thesis mastering program. The reason is that once you complete your thesis, so there is a requirement for recognition. There is a requirement for a kind of a award for you. So how to recognize? So that is an important question to be answered. So most of you are not aware that so there are a lot of opportunities where you can publicize your work. So whatever the crucial findings, significant findings in your thesis, so that can be publicized for the betterment of the general public or all the stakeholders who are interested in your topic. So if you are not publicizing, so whatever the work you have done, that will go vain. So there is no benefit for the stakeholders in the significance of your study. In the first chapter of your study, you are basically discussing about the significance of this study. So in the significance, you are highlighting the significance for all the stakeholders, including future researchers, practitioners, then the policymakers, government. So likewise, so you will propose some um, implications for them, or you will discuss significance for them. So if you are not publicizing your work, so they will not get to know about the significance of your study, which could have an impact on the overall society or overall the economy. So we do not know. So in order to have an impact, so it is important to publicize your work. So there are ways of and means of publishing the undergraduate research. So during the today's session, so I will cover the publication opportunities available for undergraduate researchers. So what are the publications opportunities available for you? Then I'll discuss about a winning strategy for a publication. So then I'll discuss what are the areas you should focus, then how to differentiate your work, then how to write a scientific article, the art of writing a scientific article, and also the cover letter. So that is the outline for today's session. So when it comes to publication opportunities for undergraduate researchers, there are ample publication opportunities. So if you consider journals, so we can see peer-reviewed journals are available. Peer-reviewed journals are the journals, so that is reviewed by you. If you are submitting a manuscript, so that manuscript that should be reviewed by peer colleagues or senior researchers. So we call it as a double blind peer review. So meaning that, so that is reviewed by two people. Those are anonymous. Those are anonymous. So in addition to that, journals that can be open access journals as well. Open access journals in the sense that there is no cost for readers, and also there is no cost for submission for the authors as well. So these opportunities are available. So you do not need to pay anyone. So you can just publish your work if you are adhering to their submission guidelines. So these are the opportunities. So when you are doing that, so after publicizing your work or after the publication, so there can be occasions where you can recognize your work. So your work that can be recognized by it can be by an interview panel. For an example, if you are So other than the journals, so you can publish as book chapters as well. Book chapters are twofold. So you can publish your empirical study. So whatever the research study you have done, utilizing gathering data, analyzing data. So we call it as empirical research. So you can proceed with empirical paper, empirical chapter in a book. Or else you can proceed with the conceptual chapter in a book as well. So in addition to that, so if you cannot publish in journal or a book chapter, so you can publish it in conferences as well. So when it comes to conference, that is fourfold. You can proceed with the poster presentation. Poster presentation in the sense that you are graphically showcasing. So what is the purpose of your study? What sort of scientific methodology you have used? What are the key findings and implications for the stakeholders who are interested in your research? So you can show it as a design, so as a poster, so you can present it. The second part or the second sub-pillar of the conferences, that is abstract. So you can present an abstract in a conference, and you can have multiple comments, valuable comments, comprehensive comments from the panel. So in order to improve your study, to further develop it, in order to publish in a good quality journal. So conferences are a good platform specifically for undergraduate researchers because you cannot, publish your work in a journal or in a book chapter. As a scratch mechanism, so it's really difficult, really hard. So you can have the first step in order to publish your work in a conference. So from the conference, if you are publishing it as an abstract, so it can be abstract, that is also twofold. It can be structured abstract or unstructured abstract. Structured abstract in the sense abstract, so that is structured. So there can be sub headings in the structured abstract like purpose, methodology, findings, implications, and originality. Unstructured is abstract, so there are no subheadings. So you write as a one paragraph or two paragraph, the whole abstract you write. So abstract, that is also one possibility. The second opportunity, that is the extended abstract. Extended abstract is an extended version of the initial abstract you have written. So you can develop it to the next level or to a different scale. So by adding more into the purpose, more into the methodology, then you can have additional section called literature review. So you can discuss conceptual review or the theoretical review or the and the empirical review, both in the literature review. So likewise, so in the extended abstract, so it can go 4,500 words. So or else maximum of 4 to 5 pages. So you can limit your work because not everyone who can read your entire article if you are publishing a full paper. So it's really hard. So what you are doing is you are summarizing your work. So in accordance with the criteria given, so that you can basically publish it as an abstract, extended abstract. The last option under the conferences, that is, you can publish your work as a full paper in a conference. So full paper in a conference, if you are publishing a full paper in a conference, so you cannot publish it again as a journal article or publish it again as a book chapter because full paper is publishing at the conference here. So assume that you have not published your full paper in the conference. So you have published only extended abstract or poster. So then still you have the opportunity to publish your work as a book chapter or a journal because the content that is not covered in the extended abstract or so I'm sorry I dropped from the call just because of a technical glitch. So I'll share the PPT now. So I was discussing about the newspaper articles. So that is also a publication opportunity for undergraduate researchers, but because not everyone can publish as a journal or a book chapter or a conference article. So newspaper article, that is also a possibility where you can publicize your work. That is one of the most easiest ways to publicize your work. So you can publish your work as a newspaper article. So then from that, so you can gain a kind of visibility in the general public. So for your work that will be recognized as well. So that is really good as a budding scholar. So you can, develop your image, you can develop your reputation as a scholar or as a researcher. So by writing newspaper articles based on your research. So that is another way, another mechanism, because not all the scholars, they can publish their work as journal or book chapters or conferences. So the last one, last opportunity for the undergraduate researchers, that is magazine articles. So you know that. So in our faculty also, we do have a lot of magazine article opportunities. You can write your work as as a magazine article where you can publicize your work among the peers in the university, among the academics, senior academics of the university. So you can publicize your work. So these are the ways you can publicize or publish your work, which is essential. So if it is goes as unpublished work, so there is no value addition for your effort. So you have done a wonderful job in writing, compiling, analyzing, so everything. But there is no finally a good outcome because you have not published it. So if you can publish it, so then there will be a good opportunity for you, so which is essential, and also for the stakeholders who are interested in your thesis, so they can get some value additions for their decision making as well. They can make informed decisions within their organizations. So which is again a value addition for them as well. So it is important to publish your work. So that is the reward you can get. So you can see some of the publications which we have done based on undergraduate research. So we completed those things as, collaborative projects. So after completion of the thesis, so we have taken it as a collaborative thesis project, and we publish in journals, in book chapters, and also even in conferences, and also in newspaper articles, magazines as well. So the first paper which we have published, so that is impact of mobile money adoption and financial inclusion in Sri Lanka, mediating impact of hedonism. So this paper that is published in Journal of Money and Business, one of the good journals published by Emerald. So the student was that is Asanka Kumar. So one of your senior um, students. So he has publicized his work as a research paper. Then the second one, that is basically financial services employee engagement and attitude towards artificial intelligence, evidence from Sri Lanka. So this is also published as a book chapter by a book published by Emerald Publishing, which is his Corpus Index. So for the students, he or she has a good opportunity by publicizing this work. So this one that was published by Kalpani Madhushika Pigera. So another past student from our banking and insurance degree program. So she also published her work. Then third paper, so impact of green banking practices on the environmental performance of bank, the mediating role of green financing in Sri Lanka. So this is also by Scopus. So by a book published by Emerald Publishing. So the one of the another students called Prabodhika Hansani, she has published this work. The last one here, you can see how has COVID-19 impacted the business performance of Sri Lankan firms, a qualitative inquiry. So it also published in a book published by Emerald Publishing, which is on digital transformation strategies, digital transformation strategic resilience, cybersecurity, and the risk management. That is the book title. So then last one, so we proceeded it as this paper. So we proceeded it as a journal article as well. So however, in the same time, we publish it as a newspaper as well. So health-related behavior and behavioral adoption of mobile payments in life insurance during the COVID-19 pandemic. So we have proceeded as a journal paper and also as a newspaper article. So you can proceed with, I mean, multiple um, outlets, despite of, I mean, relying only on one outlet. So when you are publishing your article, um, in the journal. So in the same time, you can publish it in as a newspaper article as well. There are ample opportunities provided for the students and academics of the university by the Faculty of Management Studies. We maintain the research column. So we can include your articles in the research column as well. That is another publishing opportunity, which is published by Sunday Observer. So, as I stated, the second topic for today's session, in order to discuss a winning formula for a publication. So, not everyone in the classroom who are completing their dissertation or thesis can publish their work as a journal article or as a book chapter. So not everyone can do that. But if we can differentiate our work, if we can focus on our work, we can publish our work in a reputed journal or a reputed book published by a recognized publisher. To do that, so there are two strategies we have to focus in order to outperform the competition. Competitor institutions are also there nowadays. So from, I mean, competition. So in order to differentiate your work from the competition is the other peer researchers who are basically complete in their project. For an example, if you take the Faculty of Management Studies, so your competition is the students who are complete in the same degree program, who are complete in the dissertation with you. So there will be a competition anyway in order to publicize your work, so that you can differentiate your work. You can focus on your work. If you can focus while differentiating your work, so you can basically develop a unique competency, which is definitive or sustainable competitive advantage. So you can differentiate your work from others, which will lead to top tier publications or a publication. So if you are thinking about publicizing your work as a conference paper, as a book chapter, or as a journal, or as a magazine, or as a newspaper article. So, what the main thing you have to do is you have to compare your work from the peer researchers. So, what competition has done? So, have they done a similar topic? So that even though there are ample studies on the same phenomena, there can be some differences in your findings. So you have to get all the sources, all the information into one table and compare and contrast your findings with their findings in order to make the originality of your research, which is essential. So when you are focusing on your manuscript, when you are focusing on your final product, so and also while differentiating in writing the article, so that you can publish in a top tier or in an academic journal. So next we will discuss they are here. There are two strategies where we can obtain the decisive competitive advantage or the sustainable competitive advantage. So the two strategies are focusing on what you are doing and differentiating your services from the rest of the market, which is essential. So next we will discuss what to focus. The focus is strategy. So this focus and differentiation that is coming from Porter's generic strategies. In addition to these two strategies, there is a strategy called cost leadership strategy as well, which we are not applying in publicizing your work. In publishing here, which here I have not taken that into the picture because we are not focusing on that strategy. So cost leadership. So but we will concentrate on focus strategy and also the differentiation strategy, which is essential to differentiate your work from the competition. So then only there will be opportunity for your work in order to get it publicized in good reputed outlet, which is a win for you. So what to focus? That is a question. So focus on what journal? So you should understand that first before writing your article from the thesis. So first thing you have to understand is that so if you are writing for a journal, so you have to understand what are their guidelines. Are there any specific guidelines for them? Then only after reading out, after mapping the guidelines with your work, then only you should proceed with the writing of the article. So otherwise, if you are not initially focusing on a specific journal, if you are selecting the journal at a later stage, there is a disadvantage for you. The disadvantage is that, so if you are understanding the journal after writing the article, so you have to revise your work in order to suit the submission guideline of that journal. So if you have done your work, so after identifying the special submission guidelines of the journal, so then you can work accordingly. So that is the amazing side of this story. So then, if you are basically focusing on a suitable journal these days, so there is a question regarding how to select a suitable journal. How to select a suitable journal? That is a question for most of us. So we do not have clear criteria in order to select a journal. We do not know whether we are publishing in a fake journal or predatory journal or a clone journal even. So we have put forward one session in identifying fake, predatory or clone journals during this week. So under the thesis mastery program. So how to find a suitable journal? So at the first phase, before writing of anything, so that is a question for us. So there are digital tools that we can utilize in order to select a suitable journal. Journal finders, so that is a good technological tool which we can utilize in order to understand. So what are the suitable journals available in my domain? Journal findings are operated by publishers like Emerald Publishing, publishers like Sage Publishing, publishers like um, Elsewhere Science Direct. So through journal finders, you can basically find out what is the journal that is best suited for your study. What you have to do is you have to just enter the data in the journal finder, the title, so everything should be entered. So then they will analyze and basically propose some feasible outlets or feasible journals, feasible suitable journals for your article, which can be published in due course. 1 minute, give me a minute. So if you have any questions, you can write it in the Q&A. So there is a box titled Q&A. You can write down your questions. So then in the meantime, when I'm conducting the session, so I can answer as well. So journal finders, as I stated earlier, so that is a good technological tool where we can utilize in order to find suitable journals for our article. So journal finders are available in most of the book publishers or journal publishers like Emerald, Elsevier. They do have Taylor and Francis. They do have journal finder. So then you have to enter the title of the journal and you can find out what are the best suited journals for the specific study. So journal finders are one way or one methodology in finding a suitable journal for your article. But there are some other ways as well. Remember those things. In addition to that, aims and scope, you will look at the aims and scope of the journal. So before you are selecting an article. So because if the journal so their aims and scope that is different from the stated uh, scope of the journal. So what is advertised is different from the original scope of the journal. So there is a problem. And also, if you are not adhering to the abstract guidelines of the journal, so sometimes your paper will be rejected. And also another factor you can basically consider when selecting a journal, that is the impact factor or site score. So if you are having an impact factor, good impact factor or a good site score, meaning that so you are publishing your work that is being recognized all over the world. So no point of publishing your work in order to showcase that you have done a study, and also if it is not visible for other academics, other universities, other colleagues, and also the governments and all other stakeholders who are interested in your topic. So from aims and scope also we can identify journals. In addition to that, you can look at impact factor or the site score. Impact factor or site score for researchers that is develop automatically so that so your decision that could be straightforward. So no need to do a manual calculation. It is really straightforward. So if the impact factor or site score is really good, so then you can submit your article to that outlet. So then you can look at the published articles of the selected journals as well. For an example, if you basically rate your literature review articles, number of articles you received, so as 1, 2, 3, 4. So then you can see the published articles of the journal, their topics, their relevance, and so on. So if your study is one of the studies that has basically provided us a better visibility, and also your research that is publishing outside the university, so that is really good for you. That is really good for you. So publish articles by the journal. So that is also really important when selecting a suitable journal for your study. So if one author has published 10 to 12 articles in the same domain, so meaning that he or she could be an expert in that domain. So then next you can basically go through the published articles by the journal as well. So publish articles by the journal mean in that, so before you are basically, you submit your article to the respective journal, you can see what are the articles published previously. So you can have some kind of understanding what topics are hot, what topics are received less attraction. So what are the most eye-catching titles and so on. So by looking at them, So you can have a discussion within yourself, within your team, whether to submit or not. So in addition to that, so what are the published articles by the journal? Articles by the journal, indexing of the journal. So it can be ABDC index, it can be Scopus index, it can be Web of Science index. So it can be indexed by any other body like ABDC, Australian Business Deans Council. They do have a classification from um, uh, A grade, A star grade, A grade, B star grade, B grade. So likewise, the classifications are there in accordance with the performance of the journal. So then you have to look at the indexing of your journals as well. So if for your journal website says that this is index in Scopus or this is index in Web of Science, what you have to do, you have to cross-check their website whether it is included or captured, which is essential. Then you can look at your references as well. So by looking at the references, you can have some kind of understanding who are the most prominent scholars in the domain. And also, so after looking at your references, so you can review the publications of both the entities for the last year. So then you can have some kind of understanding whether you are proceeding to the same journal or not. In addition to that, indexing of the journals, that should be considered for sure. In addition to that, you have to look at your references as well, which is essential. In addition to that, you have to review all the documents in the candidate journal and find out what are the hot topics, what are the accepted type of articles, and so on. So then that will auto guide you in order to complete the programs. So then we will continue from what to focus. So you have to focus more on quality than the quantity. So don't think about the quantity. Don't think about having multiple numbers, but having 10 to 12. So that is enough. So rather than having 10 to 12, so you can have at least 2 to 3 articles for a year, which is enough. Because you are not basically into research and publications in your career. So rather than focusing on providing multiple articles based on the same thesis, so you can focus on at least one article, which will be a value addition for you. So in addition to that, you have to focus on the manuscript or the product as well. As you know, so if you are marketing a product in the industry, so you have to market the product well. So you have to focus on the right audience. You have to focus on pricing. There are different factors you have to consider. So focusing on the right audience, which is essential. If you have accepted, article, either in a conference or as a book chapter or as a journal paper, so that is the win for today. So you will be motivated for the next article as well. So remember those things. So focusing on right audience, which is essential, and you have to identify the audience as well. For you, audience is basically it's your supervisor, your academic colleagues who are the supervisor's colleagues who know to supervisor. Then what are the other audiences? The journals, that is also your audience. They do have different submission guidelines. So if you can agree upon that, so you can proceed with the collaboration even. So identifying the audience, which is essential, because from that we can basically get the interest in the topic as well. The person who is carrying out the research, so then we can have their interest over the journal, publishing in a journal or a conference paper or a book chapter or a magazine article or any other source. So in addition to that, you can identify the audience by simply looking at the abstract as well. So for an example, if you take the last two questions, what they are interested in topic, dividend policy determinants of Sri Lankan firms, a triangulation approach. So what do you mean by triangulation? That will increase the curiosity. So then the last topic, so determine the range of the interest. So if you are focusing on one region, for an example, so if you are focusing on one region like Western province, so you will be reserving the Western province, not any other. So determine the range of interest or the level versus local versus international, which is essential. So now I would like to discuss what not to focus as well, which is also essential. We discuss what to focus, then what not to focus. So you have to focus on your manuscript. So in the same time, so you have to have some kind of understanding where you should not proceed or what should not to focus. That should be understand by yourself. So when you are publishing your hard work, when you are publishing your thesis, what you have to do is you have to have a same kind of person in order to evaluate this. So if you are doing this, so a peer can review your article. A subordinate can do that. A colleague can do that. And also superior, if the superior has the understanding, he or she also can basically have some kind of understanding with regard to the same. So predatory and fake or clone journals. Clone journals are duplicate journals of the originals. We have to avoid it. So the last session of this program that is devoted for copyright, that is devoted for basically predatory fake, identifying predatory fake clone journals, and also how to manage the ethics in research. So that part will be covered by Professor Sumit Narulla day after tomorrow. So there we are going to discuss in detail. So what do you mean by predatory fake clone journals? Because as students who are completing the thesis within the speculated time, so you do not have time to find out what are the suitable journals and so on. So you should not proceed with predatory fake or clone journals. Clone journals are the duplicate journals. So in addition to that, you can check whether the institution who provided the journal, which is indexed by open direct open, directly of open access journals, we call it as DOAJ or COP or OSPA or STEM. So if that is published in a Scopus or Web of Science Index outlet, so your paper will also in that range only. So in addition to that, so as researchers, you should not focus on if the journal says so via Scopus index, so you have to check whether from the original document whether it is Scopus index or not. So otherwise, by simply looking at the pricing, so you will submit it. So you will be in huge trouble where you cannot mitigate the problem, where you have to pay the entire day. So which is very crucial. So in addition to that, so if the journal says it is index, so we have to check from the original sources whether it is index or not. So the journal website, it can state that, so our journal is index in Scopus, index in their index in these databases and so on. But you have to check whether it is actual index or not. Focus on that. So in addition to that, you have to check whether the journal is following up ethical practices, including good governance. If the journal is charging a fee, you have to check whether the journal editor he is following up on the payment. So if he is following up on the payment, so meaning that the good governance is not there, which can be a suspicious fake or predatory or clone journal, then you can research the editorial and the advisory committee details, whether there are known people or so on. In addition to that, you have to look at the peer review process. So if the journal says that, so we will publish in 2 to 3 days after the submission, so that is a suspicious predatory fake or clone journal. No one can publish within 2 to 3 days. It will take months for peer review completion, addressing the comments, and so on. In addition to that, so you have to read through the past issues of the journal. So if there is an article process in charge, you have to check the original P and so on. So these are the areas you should not focus or you should improve. So as an editor, experienced editor, so I founded the South Asian Journal of Marketing in 2021 in collaboration with Emerald Publishing. So I have seen, so today is devoted for publicizing your research work. So research work that can be publicized in journals, it can be journal in conferences, it can be as book chapters, it can be as newspaper articles, or it can be as even magazines. So if you take from a thesis or a journal perspective, so if you are submitting it to a journal, you have to ensure that the journal or the article which you have submitted, so it follows the submission guideline of the candidate journal. So you have to ensure that. So one of the experiences I gained through this activity, so I can clearly state that most of the 15 to 20% articles received by SJM that is not related to marketing even. So we are proceeding with the rejection for that. So in addition to that, when we received the reviewer comments, so when we are submitting the reviewer comments to the authors, they are not simply addressing those comments and just submitting it is stating that I have addressed all the comments. But remember that editors and reviewers, they are basically well recognized people in the publishing landscape. They know what paper published when and all the informations that is available. So don't think that the editors and reviewers, they are blind on that. So they do have sufficient information, sufficient knowledge on that. So though you cannot override them. So in addition to that, when we receive some comments and the comments have been passed to the authors in order to incorporate in their article. So after the submission, we realize that most of the articles, they do not essentially address the comments given by the reader, the reviewers. Here you have to ensure that. So all the comments given by the reviewers that should be addressed. For an example, if the journal says that, so we expect approximately around 6,000 words for a full paper. So you have to adhere to that. You cannot submit a paper with 7,000 words. The reason is that, so additional 1,000 words, it has a cost. You have to pay it. So addressing the reviewer comments at the first place itself, so it is a kind of a good green signal. Green signal. So in addition to that, there are inadequate responses to the reviewers. Some comments are not addressed. So and also some of the researchers, they submit their basically initial manuscript without any revision after they receive the revision comments. So they are not addressing, and they are basically submitting the whole version stating that I have already addressed all the comments, but it is not. So in addition to that, so you have to go through whether the English use that is formal and adequate. So you have to ensure those things. So these are the key issues I see. And also, there are some occasions where resubmissions happen after rejecting the manuscript by the editor or a reviewer. So they are submitting it again. So stating that we have revised the manuscript, but there are no revisions to the manuscript sometimes. So you have to focus on these areas which is essential. So far we discussed about what to focus in writing a scientific article. Now we are going to discuss on how to differentiate your article from the peer journals or peer articles or peer submissions. So let's have a 2-minute break. So I'll come back. So welcome back to the session. So far we discussed about one strategy, which is focus. So we have to focus on several areas as I highlighted. So you have to focus on the manuscript. You have to focus on the manuscript quality than the quantity. You have to focus on the audience when you are writing the manuscript. So these are the essential areas you should focus. So in addition to that, in order to publish your work, it is essential to differentiate your work from the rest of the research papers as well. For an example, if you are publishing, if you have intention to publish, so you have to differentiate your work from the other research studies conducted in investigate in the same research problem. For an example, if you are investigating the mobile payment adoption, if there are already available research papers on mobile payment adoption, so you have to highlight how your study is different from those of the studies. So that will only create the originality of your study. So that differentiation is essential. So you can do a differentiation at different levels. For an example, if one paper focus on one the population they have focus on. in conducting their study, assume that it is a major population in a country. So if you can do a kind of a subpopulation analysis, so if you are focusing on different sub-samples, for an example, the perspectives you can get from different, I mean, if you are conducting a survey, so you can have different perspectives. So perspectives of the students, perspectives from the academics, perspectives from the administrative parties or the management of the university. So likewise, so different perspectives will provide a different viewpoint. So you can differentiate from that as well. So in addition to that, if your study is not conducted in a developing or emerging market like Sri Lanka, if there are no studies conducted in Sri Lanka with regard to your topic, so then you can state that, so there are no studies conducted. So that can be the originality. So the contextual differentiation, so that is with regard to the context you are doing, so you are differentiating your work. So you are stating that, so there is a paucity of studies conducted in investigating the same phenomenon. So in this context, so that is the major gap. So that is a kind of a contextual differentiation you are doing. So if there are studies conducted in the same context, so even still you can compare your study from the current study and you can differentiate. So by having subpopulations, but by having different perspectives, by having different methodologies, so you can still do that. But requirement is you have to justify the, the differentiation strategy you have taken. So which is essential. So in addition to that, so you can differentiate your work utilizing methodological differentiation as well. So assume that most of the studies which are conducted utilizing quantitative methodology. So you can state that, so most of the studies are conducted utilizing the quantitative methodology, but the research of this study uses the qualitative methodology, a different perspective, different methodology, because the research problem of this study, it has some qualitative leanings, it has qualitative weightage. We are investigating a qualitative research question. So there is a requirement for a qualitative investigation, so that you are basically, while doing a methodological differentiation, so in the same time, so you are stating that, so this is the most suitable methodology. So third, you can differentiate your findings from the previous studies as well. Your findings that can be different from the previous studies. So from that, so you can compare and differentiate your work. So in addition to that, if you are conducting your study for the first time in the same context, in the context you are doing, so you have the first move advantage as well. So in order to get rid of most of the issues in differentiation, so differentiation that can be made through collaborations as well. Collaborations in the sense that the question here is with whom to collaborate, what to collaborate, and when to collaborate. So in order to address those questions, so you can still collaborate with your colleagues in conducting your research. In conducting your research paper, for an example. So assume that I have done a research study. So I have some quantitative mindset, and my skills are in quantitative side. So assume that if I am doing a mixed methodology study, so if I can collaborate with a qualitative expert, so that will provide a different perspective, and also it will enhance the validity of the mixed methodology, because in the research itself, there is a quantitative expert and a qualitative expert, so that we can minimize the weaknesses through collaboration. We can convert weaknesses as strengths through collaboration. Collaboration that can happen between the people, between the researchers. So you, as researchers, you can collaborate with supervisors, mentors, expert in the industry, expert in the academia. So in order to have more advantage. So in addition to that, the collaboration that can happen in the methodology itself as well. So if you are collaborating two different methodologies in one study, that can be a kind of invention. Through that also you can differentiate your work. There are multiple ways to differentiate, remember. So we have to use these multiple ways to differentiate our work from the rest of researchers in order to make the originality of our study or novelty of our study. So next, so far I have discussed two strategies for a publication, that is focusing on your work and the differentiating your work from rest of the articles or rest of the researchers. So in the same time, so if you want to publish your work as a research article, as a journal article, or a book chapter, or a conference paper, so that you should have some kind of understanding with regard to what are the essential components of a research article. Because here you are basically publishing, you are going to publish your work here as a journal or as a book chapter or as a conference paper. So these three items or three publication opportunities as journal or book chapter or a conference. So it has the same type of structure in the article, so that understanding what are the core components of the research article and how to write a research article, that is essential knowledge. That is an essential knowledge for you. So here you can see the general structure of a research article. So it is consisted with initially the title, the topic of the research article, the manuscript, or the research study you are doing, then the authors of the study, you and your supervisor, then abstract. So abstract, that is written as a kind of a summary of your study, showcasing the purpose, showcasing the methodology you utilize, summarizing the key findings, implications to the stakeholders, and the originality of your study. So these are the essential 5 ingredients of abstract. So after the abstract, so you will add keywords, then the main text is there. Main text, that is basically sixfold, I would say. So in the test main body, so you can have the introduction. In the introduction, you will have research problem, objectives, and justification to the research, and so on. So then you will have the literature review section. So literature review is twofold: theoretical review and empirical review at the end. So you can provide some kind of research gaps you are going to investigate in this research. So then methodology, that is also under the main text. So what is the scientific method you use in conducting this study? So you should have some kind of understanding with regard to that as well. Then the results and the findings, or the data analysis and results. So you have to basically run a model, or it can be even inferential statistics or descriptive statistics to explain what is your finding. So then after the results, so then you should have discussion, conclusion, and implication to the practice in the discussion. So you will convert what do you mean by the results. What is the meaning of results to you? You will discuss it. You will compare your results with the previous studies. How your findings are different from those of the studies, that is being discussed in the discussion section. Then conclusion and implications to the practice and the future directions. So that is the main body. Then you can have acknowledgement if you wish to, thank someone. So then you can easily do that. Then finally the references and supplementary materials. So these are the core components of a research article. You should have these essential components in writing an article. So why we have taken this topic last is the reason that so once you complete your dissertation, your next task is to write for a journal or write for a book chapter or write for a conference. So my recommendation is to proceed with a conference first. So then you will receive a good set of comments from the panelists in order to improve your conference paper, and you can again publish it to a journal. So remember one thing, but so I have to highlight this. So if you are proceeding with the so if you are proceeding as a full paper in the conference, as a full paper in the conference here, so if you are proceeding as a full paper, you cannot publish it as a book chapter or journal because it will come under the self-plagiarism. So if you are publishing it as a full paper, so you cannot publish it again as a book chapter or a journal. It will considered as the self-plagiarism, which is violating the principle of ownership. So then, if you are proceeding it as an extended abstract or a poster, you can still convert it as a book chapter or a journal, but you have to have a report on plagiarism, whether the original document is plagiarized in the second document in order to see that. But if you are proceeding as a poster or abstract, so then that is an abstract presentation in a conference. Then full paper that can be published as a book chapter or a journal after addressing the comments received given by the panel of the conference. So let's look at so what are the main ingredients of the body of the text of the manuscript. So starting from the title, then abstract, then keywords. What do you mean by them? So what to include in those sections? So we will discuss. Now, so developing your title, that is essential. Title should be a kind of eye-catching title, but it should be a meaningful one. Title, it is the heading of your research. So this is your first opportunity to attract the reader's attention. Your readers are, if you are submitting it to a journal, journal editors. If you are submitting it to a book project, so the authors or editors of the book, they are the audience. So you have to gain the you have to gain the you have to gain the interest of the audience, which is essential. Obtaining the interest of the audience, that is essential component. So this is the first instance where you obtain the reader's attention, audience attention. So you should have a good title, eye-catching title, but a meaningful title. This is like a label of your, product. So it should be more informative and concise. So reviewers, they will check whether the title is specific, meaningful, and whether it reflects the whole study. There are sometimes there are titles which not reflect the entire study or fail to represent the entire subject matter adequately. So in developing the title, so you should avoid acronyms. You should avoid technical jargons and so on. So in the title, you should not use acronyms or abbreviations. So here, when developing the title, my advice is to discuss with your co-authors, discuss with your main collaborators, and finalize the topic. Because it is your main, it's like a brand name. So you have to have a good title, but it should reflect the entire study. Developing the title, it is essential. It should be eye-catching one. The second thing, so you have to focus on the abstract as well. So why I have taken the content of an article here, since we have to focus on that. In most of the articles or manuscripts, so we see nonsense are written in these areas. So then there won't be any possibility for a publication. So the abstract, that should stand alone. It is like an advertisement of your product. If you are selling a product, so abstract is the advertisement. If you are selling a product in the market, so the advertisement, in developing the advertisement, so it will take years to develop the advertisement, and you will invest in millions in it developing the advertisement. But assume that your abstract is the advertisement of your final research study, advertisement of that. So here you are not spending much valuable time in developing the abstract, which is a question. So then, what you have to do? You have to have a valuable time in developing your advertisement, which is abstract. So most of the time, so we have seen that the researchers, they use multiple jargons, uncommon abbreviations in the abstract without explaining the same. So you cannot have abbreviations, technical jargons in the abstract. Remember that. So in addition to that, you must be accurate and specific as well. So it should, the words you are using, it should have a precise meaning. So in abstract, sometimes I have seen that most of the researchers, specifically undergraduate researchers, they do not know what to include in the abstract. So your abstract, that should consisted with the purpose, clear purpose. Why? What is the reason of conducting this study? Then specific methodology, then key findings and implications, conclusion, originality, in brief. So it can be basically for 250 words or 200 to 250 words based on journal guidelines. So you have to follow the word limitations here for the abstract. So after the abstract, next we have to write down the keywords. So more importantly, we finalize the title, abstract, and the keywords at the last. So after completion of writing the entire article, we fine tune the abstract and so on. We are still fine tuned because fine tuning. The reason is that, so this is the first instance where your audience will capture any mistake. So you should not give any opportunity for mistakes. So after the abstract, so you should develop some keywords. Keywords are the labels of your manuscript. And these are the critical items to correct, because in the indexing and searching, in the search engine optimization, for an example, if you have done a study on mobile technology adoption, so or utilizing technology adoption model or TAM. So assume that. So you have to have you have to download the articles written in that. So then when you are typing the mobile payment adoption, so those are the keywords, mobile payment adoption. So if you include those as keywords, then only those articles will pick up by the readers. So through keywords only, the readers, they can search for your articles. So search engine um, engines are working based on these keywords. So you have to mention the keywords. Then only algorithms are developed in order to capture those keywords, which is essential. So if you need to use abbreviations as keywords, so you can still do that in the keyword section. For an example, instead of United States of America, if USA is heavily used, so you can use USA as a keyword. So next, you should write the introduction of your manuscript. So this is your chance to convince your readers in order to sell your product, which is the manuscript, in order to read. So it should be a easy to understand his story. So here in the introduction, you have to describe the problem. You have to provide the background to the problem. So you have to discuss whether are there any existing solutions for the problem. What are their main limitations? What are the studies conducted, investigate in the same phenomena? How your study is different from those of the studies, the justification for the problem. So this is the place where you can justify. So here in the introduction, you have to cite more recent articles. So then only your topic will be more contemporary and findings will be valuable for the audience. So here you have to introduce the main specific publications on the specific topic. So if it is on mobile payment adoption, so you should start it from Davis 1989. So then most recent studies. What are the most recent studies on mobile payment adoption and in your domain which you are investigating? And you have to discuss in the introduction how your study is different from those of the studies in order to create the originality of the study. So then you have to justify the rationale for the study as well. So editors, they will rate the references irrelevant to the work. So that in the introduction, if you are putting some references, so you have to have proper references and relevant references as well. Not much references, but you should include some references in order to improve the academic writing level. So there are some common pitfalls of the introduction as well. So what are the common pitfalls of the introduction? So in the introduction, I have seen that most of the introductions are too lengthy. So it goes more than 5 to 6 pages and more than 2000 words. So my recommendation is that 1000 to 1200 or 1500 words are enough. Maximum of 2 to 3 pages for the introduction. So too wordy and too many subheadings are there in the introduction. So I have seen recently also in the introduction of the manuscript you are writing. So you have different subtopics like research objective, research problem, research question, significance of the study, and so on. It looks like that you have basically copied from thesis and put it as a manuscript, which is not good for your reputation. Remember that. So let me have a couple of water. So 1 minute. 1 minute. Welcome back to the session. We were discussing about common pitfalls of the introduction. So there are different issues in the introduction I have seen during the last couple of years in manuscript, specifically as an editor. So that you should get rid of these pitfalls. You should not have too many subheadings. It's only one heading, that is introduction. Under the introduction, you can discuss everything, including the background, objectives, and the problem and gaps of this study and rationale for this study. So never use more words than the necessary. And also, in some of the introductions, I have seen that it has a mixed bag of results, conclusion, implications, and so on. So, which is put forward for good measures, but it is not the correct place to put findings because introduction is not dedicated for the finding section. So, introduction only for introduction. So, here you should keep always all the sections separate to ensure the manuscript flows logically from one section to the next. It should be easy to understand a story. It should be like a story. So, in addition to that, in some introductions, I see that has the used car salesman feel. So, meaning that, so you are doing the same thing which other researchers have done. So, if you are selling cars, so you will modify it, you will cut and polish it. So, then you will give a kind of a showroom look to the vehicle, and you will say that so the vehicle is in showroom condition even though it is heavily used. So likewise, in I mean, preparing the papers or writing the research studies, researchers also use excessive words in order to explain, in order to over emphasize the importance of the article. They use this the first study to investigate this and that. So there are no studies. This is the first study to emphasize that. This is the first study to find that. But remember that. So the editors and reviewers, they are expert of the field. If you write something, they know whether it is true or false. So you should not use excessive words like novel, first time, first ever, paradigm changing. So you should not use, be genuine, be ethical in writing research articles, which is important. So introduction is only for introduction. So next, I'll go through the methodology. So I'm not going to discuss about the literature review. So the components of the literature review in a research paper or a manuscript. So that is threefold. You can discuss first the theoretical underpinning of the study under the literature review. Then you can connect it to the empirical findings or empirical review. At last, you can discuss about the contextual studies about the context. So why you are interested in this region or why you are interested in Sri Lanka in investigating this phenomena. So then at that point also you can discuss how your study is different from other studies in the same context. Then fourth, you have to discuss about the research gaps of the study as the last subheading of the literature review, which is a must. What sort of gaps you are going to address, whether it is methodological gaps, whether it is theoretical gaps, whether it is empirical gaps, whether it is contextual gaps. So whatever the gaps you have to highlight. So at the end of the literature review. So after the literature review, so the next section in the manuscripts that is devoted for methodology section. So methodology section, it should be very, it should be a kind of a summary of the key methodology, key scientific approach. So it should be a not a lengthy section. It is a very short section in your manuscript. It is the short section of your manuscript. Remember that. In the methodology, you should have the details. So The purpose of method section in order to provide the readers the opportunity to replicate your work. So the readers, they should be able to do your own research, utilizing the same methodology. That is the purpose of method section, which is we call as reproduction, reproducing or replication. That is the purpose of method section. But you can use supplementary materials if you need to, emphasize on the methodology. So here you should not repeat the same thing as you highlight the other sections. So here you can start from broader philosophy. So what is the philosophical underpinning of your study, whether it is coming from positivism or interpretivism. So if it is coming from interpretivism, so the approach is inductive approach. So then the methods that can be qualitative methodology. So in the qualitative methodology, there are 6 designs. So you are going to use one of those designs. So if you are using action research or a case study methodology, so then you have to in detail the action research or the case study methodology in the methodology section. So if there are any innovations in your methods, you can discuss those innovations in that method. If there are data collection approaches and so on, so how you are collecting data, you have to highlight those in the methodology. So methodology is one of the crucial headings of your or crucial sections of your research study or the manuscript. Manuscript is your final product. So that reviewers will criticize incomplete or incorrect descriptions on methodology. It should be very sound. So then the result section. So remember one thing, when you are presenting your results, so you have to emphasize, I have to emphasize one thing. So your statistic output, you should not put as it is in the results or data presentation and analysis section. So you should put only the interpretable results. Interpretable results. What do you mean by interpretable results? So the results that can be interpreted. So you should put only that for an example. If you are running it will have the error term, it will have standardized coefficient, unstandardized coefficient. If you are explaining only, you can put those standard error. So derb inversion. So everything is there in the regression. Then in the model summary, so many adjusted R square, R square. So likewise. So in the ANOVA table, so many. So Pearson correlations and so on. So what to include? You have to include only what you are going to explain. If you are not explaining something, so you should not put it in the data presentation and analysis. Data presentation and analysis, it is devoted only for interpretable results. Remember that. So if you are taking the output from SPSS or eViews or Stata or in vivo, so you should not put here as it is. So you can draw new tables, design new tables and put it as your own thing. So which is essential. So when basically put in the results, so better to put it as tables, figures likewise. But the tables and figures, it should be numbered. And also the description should be given. Here you can see table for results of the fixed effect model. Then the source should be added here. Source, author zone, it should be added here. And also if there are notes, for an example, these asterisks, what do you mean by double asterisk? What do you mean by triple asterisk? So triple asterisk that devoted for significant at 1% significance level. You should describe those things. In the results, so you should include only the representative results, which is essential for the discussion that should be presented. So here you should show data of secondary importance in supplementary materials. So if there are data that is important, you can attach those as supplementary materials. So here one of the most common pitfalls in the writing the results and analysis section is that sometimes some researchers they take or they split their manuscript as two and proceed with as two publications. They sometimes they keep the most important findings for another study, which is not good. So here I should emphasize that you should not hide data in the hope of saving it for a future paper. Because the reason is that sometimes you may lose evidence to support your consideration. So in the results, so you can write the results in accordance with the research questions or objectives. So then you can discuss the same type of results together. There is order. Then it is like a easy to understand story. Then discussion, which is one of the most important areas in the research paper. So discussions that is devoted for the meaning of the results. So in the discussion, we discuss what do you mean by the results? So by comparing and contrasting with the previous study findings as well. So what the results mean? So most of you, even when you are writing your thesis, I have seen that you do not have enough discussion, sufficient discussion. You should have a sufficient discussion, which is essential. So the discussion should be consistent with your findings and the previous findings by the other researchers. Here you are comparing. So how your study is different from those of the findings, how your findings are different from those of the finding and why. If it is consistent, so why it is consistent? You are discussing it here. This is one of the most important sections of your article, I would say. So here you can sell your data through discussion by emphasizing, by explaining the meaning of your results. So many manuscripts or research papers are rejected at the desk level just because of the poor discussion. So here you have to make the discussion corresponding to the results. So, but do not reiterate the results. Here you need to compare the published results with yours, the previous one, previous findings by other researchers. Here you are differentiating your work from them. Sometimes you have to confront your argument. Sometimes you have to criticize the previous study findings and showcase that you are better in explaining the same. So this is where you can sell your data. So when you are writing your manuscript, so we use 5 C's. 5 C's are devoted for the first C, that is cite. Second C, that is compare. Third C, that is basically devoted for contrast. The next C, that is for critic. You are criticizing others' work. The fifth C, that is devoted for connect. So meaning that you are connecting it with other studies while comparing and contrasting, while criticizing, while citing others. The discussion should have that 5 C's, 5 C's, 5 characteristics in place in order to have a proper discussion. Discussion is one of the most important sections in your research paper. Remember that. Sometimes I have seen one of the major pitfalls of the discussion is that sometimes there are some studies in the domain or in the context you are conducting your study. So there are some studies that is challenging your results. Oh, that is basically mm, undermining your research. So here what you are doing is you are ignoring, hide in those articles, hide in those articles. You are not highlighting those articles in your paper. So which is a bad practice. It is not good. It is against the ethics. So if there are papers, if there are manuscripts discuss the same topic, so you have to take them and discuss their findings with your findings, how your findings are different from those studies and why. If you need to confront it, you have to confront it. And you have to convince that you are correct or better or explain the difference. So if you can explain the difference, that is also enough. So conclusion, implications and future directions. So that is the last section of your manuscript. So I'm basically discussing the whole component of a research paper today because we have to focus on that. So the conclusion here, we are concluding our findings or discussion. So here, one of the most common pitfalls is that you are copying from your data presentation and analysis, or you are copying from discussion and putting the conclusion drawn. So it is not good, which is a bad practice. So here you have to conclude what is the summary and why, then implications to the practice or implications for the stakeholders. If there are implications for the investors, you have to highlight. If there are investors, if there are implications to the practitioners, you have to highlight. If there are implications for policymakers, you have to highlight. Then future directions. So in the future directions, you can first discuss what is your limitation, and you can provide that limitation, addressing that limitation as a future direction. You should be strategic in writing the article. If you know there are some limitations, you should take it as under the limit, under the future directions. So discuss the limitations under the future directions, first one or two para, and you have to provide the future direction by addressing that limitation. For an example, if your study is conducted only in the by taking undergraduate students as the sample, so in the limitation you have to write it down. So then you can propose. So in future researchers, they can, if they can have a representative sample instead of university students, so then that will be beneficial for the findings where we can generalize across the generations. So that is a benefit. So here in the conclusion that tells how your work advances the field from the present state of knowledge. So without clear conclusions, so reviewers and readers, they can't understand. Without a clear conclusion, you are like a person without a dress. So you should have a clear conclusion on board, which is essential. It should be nicely drafted. It should not be copied from your discussion, from your data presentation and analysis even. You should draw the conclusion based on your understanding. So then the implications, then the future directions. You should not repeat the abstract. So sometimes you copy from abstract or other vice versa. Sometimes you copy the conclusion and put it as the abstract also. There are repetitions even in the same document, same study. That is one of the most common pitfalls in undergraduate research papers. You should get rid of those issues. So one of the most annoying issues I can see in student manuscript, that is the references section. References section that has most number of issues in your research study. For an example, I see there are four major issues I can see in the references section. The first issue I have seen by editing books, by working as an editor. So the major problem I have seen in your manuscript is that sometimes there are some citations in the body of the text, but those are not included in the full reference list, meaning that there are missing references. In-text citations are there. There are no references for that, which is a mistake. You should avoid it. You should reconcile it. What has happened then? So when you are developing your article, sometimes when you are addressing the reviewer comments, what you are doing is you are basically getting new papers highlighted in the article. You are getting something new for the body of the text in order to explain. But you do not remember to add those references, original reference to the reference list. So that is the problem you are facing. Then what you have to do? You have to take your full paper and you have to reconcile your references with the body of the text. Take it, divide your desktop to two, split it to two. One side, the references, other side, the body of the text. So compare, match, reconcile. So at the end of the activity, you will be able to see if there are additional in-text citations without references, then you have to provide the references. And also, you will see there are some references without in-text citations even. So that can be happen when you are copying your article from a thesis or dissertation. So you are taking the full reference list from the dissertation, but for some references, in-text citations are not there in the body of the text, which is a problem. That is the major second problem I see. Second major issue in the references. Third major issue is that when you are writing the references, you are not following a specific referencing style. The journal prepares the Harvard referencing style or the APA referencing style. APA and Harvard, it has some major differences. So you are not adhering to the referencing style of the journal, which should be adhered. Otherwise, there can be a desk rejection on your manuscript. Remember that. So that is the third issue I see. Fourth issue, that is incomplete references or incomplete in-text citations, meaning that so when you are putting the references, you are doing like a half-boiled chicken. So meaning that so you are doing a half work. So references are not completed. So if a journal is cited, so the full reference of a journal, it should consist all the authors' surnames with their initials, with an symbol, if it is at last, if it is a following APA 7th edition style. So then the year within bracket, then the full stop, then the topic, title of your research. So then after that, you should have a comma. Then in italic form, you should have the journal name. Then you should indicate volume number, issue number. Volume number without brackets, issue number with brackets. 5 within bracket 3, meaning that volume 5, issue 3, likewise, then comma, PP, that devoted for the page range. So PP dot, then 430 to 500, 430 to 460, likewise. So you are not putting the everything, all the complete reference in. So here you are proceeding with the incomplete reference, which is the fourth issue I have seen in the manuscript. So when you are preparing your manuscript, you have to adhere to these fundamentals. So references, that is a major area. You have to get rid of issues. If someone is as a reviewer seeing issues in references, that will be the end of your publication journey. Because we evaluate first your article based on the references. We will see whether the references are in order, whether you have referred top quality rated journals or not. So we basically evaluate based on those factors. So another issue I have seen that, so in some manuscripts, so like literature reviews, there are ample of references, 200 to 300. So which is not good. So here you have to avoid self citations as well. So these are the major areas we have to look at when making the references section in your manuscript. So assume that your manuscript is now completed. So you have everything from the title, then you have abstract, 150 to 200 words, then you have the keywords, then you have the nice introduction. So without any subheadings, then you have the literature review. Under the literature review, you will discuss the theoretical underpinning of your study, then empirical review, then the contextual, why you are conducting this study in this context and the reason. Then at the last, under the literature review, you will have the research gaps of the study. Then you will have the methodology in detail. Then at the end of the methodology, you can have the conceptual model and also the operationalization table, then hypothesis. Then data analysis and presentation is the next section, section number 4. Then you can have the discussion section. Then you can have conclusion, implications, and future directions of the study. So after that, you can have the references. So at the end of the references, you can have appendices if necessary. So we are not adding all the appendices, but if it is necessary, so we have to add so. Remember that as well. So once the article is ready, so assume that, as I stated, in the focus strategy, so we have to focus on the journal first, the specific journal first. I stated that. So before writing anything, so you have to select a journal. So then only you will write in accordance with their journal guidelines, because guidelines are different from journal to journal. Sometimes there can be a revision, 100% revision, if you are submitting, if you are written using one submission guideline and submitting it to another journal which has a different submission guideline. So it will basically harm your time, valuable time. So that what you have to do here, so you have to have a proper manuscript for the submission. So when you are submitting your manuscript also to an outlet, for an example, let's say it's for a journal. So if it is on online submission, so you have to upload all the essential parts like cover letter. Cover letter state request the editor to have a look on your paper. So you state in the cover letter why this is significant, why this is valuable for your journal. We sell our manuscript utilizing the cover letter. Cover letter is important. So it's like job application letter if you are applying for a job. So likewise, I can remember my first paper when it is get published in a recognized journal. So I was in Matale. I was in Matale in a field tour. So I can still remember the feeling I had when my first paper in a reputed journal, which is managerial finance, which is written by myself, when it is published. So I felt like, so I have done. So I'm completed. Now I can submit elsewhere. I have the knowledge, courage. So I have the essentials in my academic journey or research journey. So I had that feeling. So in order to sell your manuscript to the editors, so in the cover letter, you should have a cover letter, nice cover letter. It should be uploaded with the anonymous manuscript. When you are submitting a manuscript, remember that thing. It should be anonymous. You can't include the author names in the manuscript itself. So you should have author information as a separate document. So then you should have the anonymous manuscript, then author document, author biography with author information. Third, the cover letter. Fourth, if you are adding your tables and figures as separate, so then for that, so you have to add those as separate, upload those as separate. which is essential. So assume that you are writing the job application letter. It is like the cover letter for the job application. So when you are applying for a job, you are writing a nice cover letter in order to impress the selection committee. So I need to have this job. So then I should write a nice cover letter by explaining my self-interest. So likewise, you should spend some valuable time for the development of the cover letter for the manuscript. So from cover letter, you can sell your product. So here you have to highlight what is this? What is this study? Why it is important for this community? So what is the significant contribution? How this study is different from the rest of the studies? Then how your study will add value to your journal. That alignment should be there. If you can highlight those areas, so that then the editor, so he will be basically satisfied. So we have to satisfy them. We are writing for them. They are our audience. We have to satisfy them. So you do a nice cover letter explaining any special requirements if you have. So for an example, if you see that your manuscript not be reviewed by certain people, certain individuals, certain organizations, so you can write down. So don't put forward this to these organizations or individuals because they have a conflict of interest in this and so on. So assume, remember that most of the manuscript will not be rejected just because of a poor cover letter. Or if even without a cover letter, some articles are getting accepted. Even without acceptance letter. So some manuscripts are getting accepted just because of the rich content they do have. But having a nice cover letter that will have opportunity for you to sell your product. So think as a seller. You are selling this to readers, you are selling this to editors. So once you have sold this to editors, the next step is to have more readability. To have more readability, you should have good keywords and all included. Then only search engine results will basically proceed your paper in the, search list as the first or second search items, which is essential for you. So with that, so I need to highlight a few areas. So not everyone can write journal articles. So you are undergraduate researchers. This is called a thesis mastering program for undergraduate researchers. So our objective as the organizers is to publicize your work. So if you think about newspaper articles, so we do, our faculty of management and studies, we do have a kind of a research column which is published in Sunday of Survey every week. That is an opportunity for you. We open up that opportunity. Not only for Sabaragamuwa, but also for entire Sri Lanka and entire South Asia. So this is the first ever research column published by a weekend newspaper in South Asia. This is a good opportunity for you. So you can proceed with a newspaper article after writing a nice newspaper article. When writing the newspaper article also, there is a kind of art. Because newspaper articles, that is not, you are writing not for the academics or not for researchers. So you should not use researcher language. For an example, you should not use significant, coefficient. So those terminologies is not understood by the general audience. So you should write in an easy to understand language, layman language. You should write it in a layman language, which is essential. And also it should be like a story if it is in a newspaper. So do it. There are opportunities and also magazine. So there are a lot of magazines. Even in our finance department, we do have the finance mirror. Other departments also, they do have different publication opportunities. So in magazines. So in our faculty magazine also, management digest, Udyama. So you can submit. And also there are different magazines published by, respected institutions as well. So you can write for magazines. So if you cannot write for journal or book chapter, the first initial stage you can write for conference paper. So you do have different conferences, undergraduate management conference of research sessions of our faculty. So that is a good opportunity for you. You can present an abstract or a full paper. You can publicize your work, get recognized, have a participation certificate, recognized as a best paper award or best presentation award. So that is the ultimate recognition as a researcher. So if you are spending 3 to 4 months, 6 months valuable time for this thesis, so then you should have a final outcome, which is the recognition and reward. So go for it. Make it happen. That is why what we expected from undergraduate researchers. Publicize your work. So don't basically copy the data sets and proceed with malpractices. Don't do that. Do original work. Do genuine work. Follow ethics. So the next session that is devoted for ethics, academic integrity, ethics in research, and how to avoid fake, predatory, or clone journals in your academic journey. So which will be conducted by another resource person from India, Professor Sumit Narulla, who is also an editor of a Scopus Index journal and top researcher in India and also top researcher in the South Asian region as well. So learn from them. So with that, so we can go for questions if you have any questions. So I cannot see there are no questions. So I cannot see the questions. So if you have questions, so I can assign. Uh, I have the time for questions as well. So you can write it in the Q&A box. If you have any questions, so this is the time for you. So if there are no questions, we can conclude the session. So thank you very much. Organizers, it's over to you.
Good evening, distinguished esteemed colleagues and dear participants. It is indeed an honor for me to deliver the vote of thanks on behalf of Department of Accountancy and Finance, Faculty of Management Studies, Sabaragamuwa University of Sri Lanka, making the successful conclusion of the 16th session of the Thesis Mastering Program 2025. First and foremost, my deepest gratitude goes to our keynote speaker today, Professor Jayantha Dewasiri. He is also the main coordinator of the TMP 2025. So your session was both thought-provoking and truly insightful. Thank you for sharing valuable expertise and experience with us. I would like to express my sincere appreciation to the Faculty of Management Studies under the leadership of Professor Atru for the continuous support and encouragement towards this initiative. A special word of thanks also goes to Professor T.Y. Pieris, Head Department of Accountancy and Finance, whose guidance and commitment have been instrumental in bringing this program to light. I would also like to appreciate the hard work of the organizing committee, Ms. Shanika Ratnasiri, Ms. Lakmini Valakumbura, Ms. Rashmina Udya, Mr. Dakshina Patabendi, for their dedication and careful coordination. Finally, a sincere thanks to our wonderful audience, academics, researchers, and students for your active participation and engagement. Your presence added immense value to the session. As we look ahead, I warmly invite all to join with us for the 17th session of the Thesis Mastery Program titled Academic Integrity, Ethics and Research, to be conducted by Professor Sumit Narula, Amit Amity University, India. Once again, thank you.